Hello, everyone, and welcome back. First and foremost, I want to say this. Thank you for being here, and thank you for your patience. It's been just over a month since our last conversation, and I want to apologize wholeheartedly for the silence. The pause wasn't planned, and it certainly wasn't taken lightly. There were unforeseen circumstances on our side, and at the time, there was simply no way this could have continued. We won't make any promises today. But what we can say is that we're going to try to show up, try to deliver, and try to make up for lost time. For those of you who've been following this journey from the start, this is a new channel, a gradual process. And behind the scenes, there are things being put in place to structure these conversations in a more captivating way as we move forward. So thank you for staying, for listening, and for giving this story the space it deserves. Now, Terence, welcome. Today, I'd really like to talk about Chapter 7, titled Unpleasant Journey to Zimbabwe. I've read this chapter carefully, more than once, and I'll be honest, there were moments that went beyond my comprehension, not because they weren't written clearly, but because of the weight they carried. It's a very big chapter, emotionally, experientially, and rather than unpacking every detail today, I'd love for you to give our listeners just a snippet. So let me ask you this. When you describe this as an unpleasant journey, what made it unpleasant? What was it about that journey, physically, mentally, or emotionally, that still stays with you today?
Yeah, thank you. I know. Yeah, it's been a while. Unexpected turn of events, as you know, as you've mentioned. But yeah, we're here. You know, this time around, we're definitely going to be a bit more consistent. Or consistent. Let me just say, we will be consistent. As I say, without getting into it, it's a bit personal. Personal matters that caused everything to come to a halt, But as I say, unforeseen circumstances, which was really out of my hands, if anything. So we can only apologize for those that are following. We can only apologize. Life was life, and so yeah. Mm. So pertaining, yeah, the trip to Zimbabwe. There's there's a lot in this chapter. It was a very traumatic experience for me, at the time. Very shocking, you know. Took me a while to get my head around it because things didn't happen, uh, different sides of the family sort of then fell out for a very long time, for a number of years, which was very devastating because I was really close to my this side of the family. So what happened was we had a situation where yeah, we traveled because my auntie was ill. I'm going to keep this one short because as I say, there's a lot in this, and that for me to explain it in depth, it'll kind of just spoil the future readers, which is something we're trying to avoid, as we've been saying from day one. But so we traveled to Zimbabwe because my auntie was ill. A phone call came through. My aunt, who's my dad's sister, fell ill, and we had to travel. So we did. It was a long drive. The drive from Lusaka, the capital of Zambia, to Jirundu, the border between Zambia and Zimbabwe, is like an hour or so. And then the longest journey rather, is from the border to Harare. That takes about 7 hours, I think, if not more. So we drove. My aunt had then moved. She was at my brother's house because where she lived her marital home, they had to move her from there. So she ended up going to my brother's house. Well, they ended up taking her to my brother's house, and that's when we got a call to say she wasn't too well. And so when we traveled, we got there. Uh, the journey itself is a treacherous road. A lot of people have lost their lives. It's scary. Very spontaneous. The steeps and everything. Yeah, not so many road barriers. So any slight, loss of control. Excuse me, loss of control of your car, you're definitely going down. And it's a long drop. And at the time, I don't even know about now, but when it comes to things like, rescue service, recoveries and whatnot, that never existed. you broke down, you relied on someone who was driving to come and help you, tow your car, wherever it was. We actually went through a situation like that on the way back from this trip. But that's something that I'll probably get into. But yeah, just to give you a summary of what actually transpired. So by the time we get there, I remember getting to uh, the gate to my brother's house. My brother lived in a very affluent area, beautiful area called Borodale. So we drive there and we get to the gates. As we're driving in, his front garden, amazing. Everything that was there, all the trees, all the flowers, exotic, and the rest of it, he planted that himself when he was just bare land. But anyway, we finally get there. As we're approaching the house, you can pretty much hear, I could hear some noise that wasn't making sense to me. But as we got closer, I was starting to make sense of it, but not too sure. The closer we got, the louder it got. By the time we went into the house, I then worked out it was someone breathing. I didn't know who it was. Then find out it was my auntie. She sounded almost like she was wired to an amplifier. And yeah, it was scary. Very eerie feeling. But we finally got in. She's very conscious. She could see us. She stretched her hand, held my hand. I said hello to her. My dad was very concerned, obviously, being the only son, loved his sisters dearly, and vice versa. You know, um, but yeah, he would then, spoke to her briefly. My dad was asking her in our native language, saying, my sister, what's wrong? What's happened? She could barely talk, but you could tell she was, very much alert, and cut the long story short, it was then decided we had to go and see one of these traditional healers. They call them a sangoma, in the outskirts, And so that was arranged. The following day came about, and yeah, we traveled to this place. Uh, there's a lot that transpires, as I said, but when you hear of dark forces, there's no way to romanticize this story. It was very sad ending. But when you hear of dark forces, it's, as I'm saying this, it kind of, takes me back to my sister's death and what transpired. Pretty much, the same kind of thing, and it was pretty much the same thing. Dark forces that were used on my auntie, and then we came to find out, who had done it. And yeah, it's all in the book. That was very shocking what actually transpired and how we actually found out, who the person was. It brought so much devastation to the family. It was very chaotic when this was actually revealed. But anyway, sadly, my auntie passed away. We stayed in Zimbabwe for a period of time, about maybe 3 to 4 days, if not a week, if that. Because dad had to go back because of work. Self-employed. He had things to do, so we headed back. Yeah, but when we left, my auntie was alive. By the time we got to Zambia, again, there's a long story between us driving from my brother's house, doing the 7, 8 hour journey, and then getting into Zimbabwe, getting to Zambia, getting to the border, and then getting into Zambia. And by the time we arrived, can you imagine after that long journey, by the time we arrived, we find my cousin, coming out of the house and she's screaming and saying she's gone. She's gone. Like, what do you mean she's gone? Who's gone? And yeah, my auntie had just passed away. We couldn't believe it because by the time we left, she was now okay. As I say, we had to go visit this Sangoma. Is like, as I said, spiritual healer. Someone can reverse certain things that may have been done to someone, any evil or any curse that might have been placed on someone. Very respected person in the southern region. But yeah, that was it. So this is about dark forces and what a human being can actually do and what actually transpired and how the family was split in half because of this particular incident. But yeah, that's the story behind it. As I say, there's a lot in the book, so I'm just summarizing it because if I had to tell the story step by step, I'll pretty much reveal the entire story and what actually transpired. But very interesting, very sad, very shocking, to know what a human being is capable of doing, you know?
Thank you once again, Terence, for sharing this with such honesty and courage. And to everyone listening, thank you, truly. Thank you for giving your time, your attention, and your openness to a story that isn't always easy to hear. I hope this conversation has stirred something in you. The urge to want to understand more, to hear more, because there is much more to this story. This book is a reflection of truly broken beginnings, of someone who came from circumstances that could have easily defined the end of the road. And yet, here we are, still standing, still pushing forward, still growing. As we move forward, you'll notice how these conversations begin to evolve. We won't say how, but you'll feel it. This is our way of making up for lost time with intention and care. And to leave you on a lighter note, we'll let this moment breathe with a touch of Emma piano.